Interviewing Matthew, take 3. Hey, welcome to Clicks and Quesadillas. This is your host, Jason. And this is Matthew.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
Oh, nice to meet you, too.
We have been friends for a long while, ever since, 2012?
Oh, yeah. What grade were you in?
I was in, like, the 7th grade, 8th grade when I first came to Mosaic, so...
It's where we met, church.
Yeah, so just about, 2012.
Teaching kids how to play clicks. That's what I do.
You were the first one to introduce me to Heroclix, actually.
I bet that's true with a lot of people. It still seems to be kind of a under-the-radar kind of thing, although it's been around for like 15 years, so I don't know. Maybe someday it'll catch up in popularity, but still good.
It's got a lot of things to compete with, so...
Yeah. Card games are a lot easier to afford.
That is true.
Yeah, and more compact.
I don't know, call me crazy, but I find it easier to bring just a small deck or something as compared to a box of heroes. But I also do like figurines, so I would not mind carrying a box of heroes around with me.
Tangible, I like the 3D, like I can grab this. It's been hard for me to get into like card game stuff. There's been superhero card games too that I've seen and played.
Because it's all just pictures at the end of the day. It's just pictures on a card. Like, I could do that. I could print that off on my printer.
It's true. Maybe. All right, so tell me about that shirt.
This is Tokoyami Fumikage from My Hero Academia. It's a manga that just came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's going on year 3 now. It's basically, it's superheroes, like Japan's take on superheroes. Almost like, what was it?
Xavier,
that was it.
X-Men?
The X-Men.
Xavier Institute?
Except the whole world kind of has mutant powers. And it's more or less what would happen if the whole world was given mutant powers and you had these schools to take care of these kids. So it's a really interesting read. I highly recommend it.
Now, is this have there been superhero powers since a long time ago in this?
In this world, yes. It's deeply integrated in their history, in their world. They're just kind of like, it's an everyday part of their lives. And some powers are useless, like, I can shoot water from my fingertips. Like, can't really do much with that, but it would make, I don't know, something more convenient. Make washing dishes pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And then some people have really big powers, like I can punch down buildings and I can create explosions. And it creates this really interesting dynamic where you have heroes who use their powers for good and to stop villains and to take care of society. You have villains who just want to do their own thing. And then you just have normal people who I can bring stuff over to me from like short distances, so I can just I'm an excellent accountant because I can just grab files when I need it, or do this. I'm really good at math, and that kind of thing. So it creates this really weird world where everything is a power, but not all powers are that useful. So it's really weird, and I really like it.
Sounds very interesting. What's this guy do?
This guy's power, well, first of all, he has a bird head, so his head is like that of a raven or a crow.
So it doesn't change into a human?
He is human. His head is just a bird's. I don't know exactly why they did that, but I kind of like it. I like how he looks. His power is Dark Shadow. He can summon a dark spirit from inside his body to kind of work for him, and it has its own strengths and weaknesses. Every power has strengths and weaknesses in the show. His Dark Shadow is really versatile, but it's weaker during the day, so it's weaker to light. But when it gets into darkness or into shadows, it's super strong, borderline overpowered, but he can't control it. So he kind of has to balance keeping it in the dark while also keeping it out of the light and that sort of thing, so he can control it, but it still maintains its power level. So.
Is that like your favorite from the show?
Yes, he's definitely one of my favorites from the show. I have a couple favorites. The main character, Asui, who is her power is frog, and I don't exactly know how to explain it other than she can do everything a frog can. You wouldn't expect that to be useful, but you'd be surprised.
High jumps.
And him, yeah.
Interesting. Do you have a favorite superhero a la like Marvel or DC?
See, that's a more interesting question. Oh, just in general, I have to say I have a lot of favorite superheroes. Spider-Man has maintained a high superhero status in my book for a while. Mainly because he was my first superhero ever.
Yeah.
He was the first superhero movie I watched, the first superhero I ever got into. I loved Spider-Man.
Did you have Spider-Man toys?
I painted my wall Spider-Man red when I was like 6. I had my dad do it for me.
Right.
But I was super into Spider-Man. I had Spider-Man toys, action figures. I had a big Spider-Man plushie at one point that I went to bed at night with. It was really, I was a hardcore Spider-Man fanboy.
So how old are you right now?
20.
20. So this was
About 12 to 14 years ago.
Okay.
I'm still a big Spider-Man fanboy. I still love Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse is slated to come out next year, I believe, or at the end of this year. Yeah, Christmas of this year. And I am ultimately excited for it. Like, I could not be more excited for Into the Spider-Verse because it looks amazing.
Do you know anything about it?
As far as we know, Spider-Man has always had this alternate universe thing going on in the comics. You've had Into the Spider-Verse was a comic series, I believe, and they're turning it into an animated movie now that has this really awesome art style. But basically, it's like
exciting.
It's Miles Morales and Peter Parker traveling, I believe, through all the different iterations of Spider-Man. It literally into the Spider-Verse, as far as we know. So we've seen Gwen Stacy's Spider-Man in there. We've seen Spider-Man 2099, I believe it is, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
They haven't shown us all the Spider-Man.
Miguel O'Hara.
That's it. We haven't seen all the Spider-Man that they're planning on putting in the movie, but they're planning on putting in more than just one, which is really great because there's so much there they could do with.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Free Comic Book Day, of all things. I got a Into the Spider-Verse comic, and it was Shakespearean Spider-Man, focusing on him, and that was interesting. Seeing Spider-Man wearing the neck ruffles, shooting candles out with his webs, and impressing whole crowds in the Globe Theater. That was interesting. Nonetheless, I love Into the Spider-Verse, so that's probably one of my favorite movies I'm looking for. Hello. Looks like Thor's up there getting busy.
Thunder, if you didn't hear. Do you have like a favorite villain?
Ooh. See, the more I think about it, the more I'm inclined to say not particularly. I mean, I love Thanos. I love Thanos, especially from the comics, but I know Thanos was a lot more immature in the comics than he was in the movie, in the Infinity War movie. For spoiler-free review of Infinity War, Thanos was a really big character in Infinity War, obviously, but he was not exactly what you expected from Infinity War. And he was very mature and very
Not the same as the comic book.
very dignified. Now, don't get me wrong, Thanos had his moments in the comics, but as far as I remember, Thanos literally cursed Deadpool in the comics because he was in love with death. And so was Deadpool. So he cursed Deadpool with immortality so that he could never be with death. Sheerly out of jealousy. He threw temper tantrums more than once. It's kind of the reason he lost sometimes to the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Avengers was because of temper tantrums he had thrown. And he was inclined to not being the nicest person around. Albeit anybody who wants to wipe out half the universe isn't exactly nice, but he wasn't always the kindest character.
Right.
Especially when it came to his emotional maturity. So I like Thanos, but he's a little different in the movie than he is in the comics. But favorite villain? See, this one's a difficult one for me because there's so many great villains to choose from.
I like Mr. Sinister.
Do you?
I do.
Who is that from?
X-Men.
X-Men. Oh.
He has the white face and the red diamond on his forehead.
Yes. Okay, I remember now.
I always was more intrigued by DC universe villains than Marvel for the most part. I do like some of the X-Men villains a lot, but I always thought that DC had a better choice of villainy.
Well, DC and Marvel, I believe they used to be part of the same company as well. Like, I believe way back in the day when they first started, they both started as under the same parent company, and there was a divide between the writers. Now, don't quote me on this because I haven't Snopesed it or anything, but as far as I know, there was a divide between the writers where some of the writers wanted to have darker themes like killing off their villains or deaths in families and stuff like that, and others of the writers were
Like in the 50s or something like that?
yeah, more or less like back in the 50s. And other writers were like, no, we want to keep things a little more family oriented, so we don't really kill our villains as much, and we don't really include as many dark themes, as it were. And that's kind of how the split came about. I know because Batman doesn't really kill the Joker. He more or less, he throws him in jail. Now with the Killing Joke coming out and all these different iterations of Batman, that's changed a little bit. But as far as I know, Marvel kind of went this more darker route-esque almost, where they kind of had these darker villains and these darker sort of like themes, whereas DC kept it all very relatively. We throw them in jail and stop them from, we don't really include death as a big part of our universe.
If you guys know if DC and Marvel were one time like this, or no, that's not true, comment below and,
Please tell me if I'm wrong.
Because I'm not going to research it, so let me know.
I would love to be wrong in this scenario, believe me.
So you are in the works of making your own comic book series.
That is true.
Tell me about it, please.
So, more or less, all of your favorite comic book series, I've loved comics for the longest time, and all your favorite comic book series all kind of share little elements in common. You've got like little things here and there that make a comic book great, like the characters and the development and the story, but nobody really examines comic books as a universe as a whole. Like, you know these really big villains where they want to destroy the universe, or they want to destroy time, or they want to rewrite history, like all these really big events. You gotta wonder what's keeping that like on track. Like what's holding your universes together? Because it's certainly not the heroes that are defending it. I mean, even when they stop the villains, there's always these big events that happen. There's always things happening in the background they can't prevent. So what's holding universes together? My comic was more or less a idea that there is a interdimensional, like a multi-dimensional police force that kind of held together law and order within the multiverse. So like all your favorite comic books, from Superman and Batman and the whole DC universe to Marvel and the DC and the Marvel universe, Superman and Batman, Iron Man and Thor, even your favorite Japanese comic books. There's these universes that they're all kind of held together, but nobody really explains how. So I created this team of people, or rather this council, I should say, a much more organized, structured kind of thing, where they go around policing the universes, policing timelines, making sure everything stays together, and making sure everything goes according to plan. And my main character is a traveler. He's one of the higher council members who travels around and oversees everything, makes sure none of the universes end up imploding on itself because of some stupid butterfly effect, or making sure that no villains try to rise up that will destroy the universes. So I ended up creating this really deep universe with all these different deep characters with their own motivations and
their own backstories and such.
I almost kind of made it in the way that it's like the main character isn't really a hero. Like, there really are no heroes in my story. Almost like everybody has their own motivations and kind of flaws, to the point where everything is painted to be like, this is the hero, this is the villain. But when you kind of go beneath the surface, everybody's almost kind of equal in their own motivations. The villain does stuff for good reasons, and the hero does stuff for bad reasons, and it's all kind of on the same par, if you will.
Right.
So I'm planning to get that out. That's actually part of my senior capstone for college. Part of my senior capstone and my graphic design capstone. So I'm planning on making a comic book for my senior year of college. So the first issue will be out by next year.
Oh.
Hopefully look for it. I don't have a full title yet, but the working title is called Archus. That's Archus.
That's exciting, and that's a good motivation and to help you move your ideas along. And also it's like you're not just doing it in your spare time because like it's just something to do, but like it's like I have this chunk of time to do for college. It's like homework.
Well,
you got to do it.
I always wanted to be an illustrator or a comic writer, a screenwriter, a comic book writer, a comic book artist, an illustrator, storyboard artist, any of those things, concept artist. I've always wanted to just draw. I've wanted to work with my hands and make a living just drawing. So I've been practicing for the past 12 years of my life, 13. ever since I could hold a pencil, really. And just been drawing ever since. Been making stuff, filled up sketchbook after sketchbook, and I've gotten to a point now where I've begun making my own comic book, and I've started putting it in the works. I've written stuff, I've written out the world, the characters, and now just got to get it on paper.
That's awesome. It's fantastic. So, what's your life look like these days?
Like in relative to comic books?
No.
Just in general?
Yeah.
Life's looking pretty good. I got an internship over at a local church called LifeBridge, and that's been pretty fun. I've been making a lot of stuff for that. I've learned how to use new art programs and make stuff for art, so that's been great. Just celebrated 2 years with my girlfriend. Her name's Lily. I love her very,
Congratulations.
very much.
What's that?
I love her very, very
Oh,
much.
that's awesome. Have I met Lily before? I haven't, right?
You probably have. She goes to Mosaic, the church that we go to, but for the most part, you probably haven't met her, and I'd love for you to meet her because she's really sweet, and I think she would really like you.
Thanks. I kind of think most people would like me.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people. Gotta
Yeah.
watch out for that Josh Mon.
Probably. Oh yeah, that Josh Mon, that guy.
Looking at you, Josh.
Do you have other interests? Like what? Tell me some other things that you find interesting, or other hobbies. Do you know? Tell me something else.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
I love martial arts. I did Wing Chun for about 1.5 years, as well as kickboxing and jiu-jitsu on and off. Currently, I'm out of practice. Woo! Currently, I'm out of practice, mostly because of financial issues and just going back and forth between the dojo, which is an hour away, the studio, as they call it. But mostly, I'm looking to get back into martial arts, so I'm really passionate about martial arts and martial arts movies. I just love all things like that have to do with like physical combat and like fighting and stuff. One of my friends, Timothy, actually just went to China to study to be a stuntman, and I'm following his adventure along with that. He's doing stunt shows over in China, and that looks really awesome.
That's neat.
He had to set himself on fire for one stunt. And he posted that on Facebook. That was something.
What do you think about any recent martial arts movies? I know there was a recent Bruce Lee movie that came out.
I saw that. I wasn't fairly impressed with that, mainly because it wasn't the full story of what actually happened. A lot of people don't know the complete story of what happened, and that's because nobody was really there. But his wife was there. His wife was one of the only ones who was allowed to sit in on that fight between him and what was the name of that guy?
Don't know.
I don't remember. I really don't remember. Gosh, I'm supposed to be the martial arts nerd here.
So, a monk. He was like a monk or something, right?
He was a monk. He came to America saying that Bruce Lee did not deserve that foreigners and basically people who were not part of the Chinese culture did not deserve to learn martial arts. And Bruce Lee disagreed. And his wife explained it as the fight was completely private, and according to his wife, Bruce Lee did not struggle with that fight at all. Bruce Lee beat him almost in no time flat, but he kept telling himself, I should have had that in 3 punches. I should have had that almost instantly. I don't know what happened. Why didn't I get that? Why didn't I win that fight when I should have? And he realized that he was not nearly as far along as he wanted to be. So that inspired him to basically train himself and create his own form of martial arts, the Jeet Kune Do system. And that's what inspired him to become the Bruce Lee that we began to know as a part of the movies. So I wasn't a big fan of that movie because it made Bruce Lee look a lot worse than he actually was. He was a lot more humble than the movie painted him to be. I mean, yes, he was a showman, and yes, he was arrogant, but he wasn't that arrogant. Okay. So the movie really painted him to be this negative kind of feature. And I didn't fully appreciate it. That and the movie didn't really star Bruce Lee. It starred one of his pupils, who was a white guy, so I didn't really come to watch some guy running around falling in love and getting in trouble. I came to watch Bruce Lee kick butt, so.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the Cobra Kai series?
No, that's a YouTube Red series, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't have YouTube Red. I have a free trial for it I've yet to use, but I've been meaning to watch the Cobra Kai series because that looks amazing. The Karate Kid series is awesome.
I also don't have YouTube Red, but you can see the first 2 episodes for free on it right now. I've seen the first 2 episodes. They were good.
Shameless plug.
It's fun. It's fun. If only they paid me.
Sponsor.
Let's see. Well, I think that's about it. Do you want to share anything about your life or anything else that's going on?
I mean, this is a Heroclix channel.
We didn't really talk about Heroclix, huh?
I mean, hey, let me ask a few questions about Heroclix, because last time I was into Heroclix, it was 6 to 7 years ago. I just come to Mosaic. It was 2012, just about. You introduced me to Heroclix, of all things. You were one of the first people to introduce me to it, and I began learning it. I began playing, but never had clicks of my own to use, so never really followed through with it.
All right. I could give you some.
I would love that. I would love to have clicks, especially if you got my favorite characters.
Oh, I can get you a Spider-Man.
Oh, I'd love Spider-Man. Yes. But for the most part, the only thing I remember about Heroclix is the little dial they have on the bottom and the numbers each representing something. So like each hero does something different. You roll a dice and that's how far they're allowed to move or how many times you're allowed to click them or something. Explain it to me.
You only roll the dice normally when you're attacking.
Okay.
So on the dial, there's the stats are already there for like movement. So Spider-Man probably would have like an 8, so you can move from 8 or less, or yeah, the next one down is attack, so that's your accuracy, and that's what you use the dice for. So when you're attacking, you roll the dice and add that to the attack. So Spider-Man would probably have like a 10 or 11, so you roll a 7.
Do they have a health? Do they have like a health pool? Does each hero have a health that you have to deplete before they can die, or?
Well, that's where the clicking comes in. So the more you click it, like eventually you get to like instead of numbers they say KO. So.
Oh, I remember now. So you would change it every time they got attacked. Like you would basically click it every time they lost health. I remember that now. Right. I remember because I kept having to click my heroes. I remember that.
Does that mean things didn't go so well for you?
My first experience didn't go too well. Maybe that's why I didn't play it as much, because I was like, I don't really think I want to play this. I'll definitely get back into it if I had the chance to. If I got my Spider-Man, I'll jump in there with my little dice and my Spider-Man. I'll put it out there and be like, I roll for perception.
Yeah, man, I got you. Yeah, I'll give you several pieces and a game board and dice if you want.
I'll be sure to buy my own. I'll be sure to buy my own and try and actually get into the scene. And who knows? Maybe we'll meet each other on the battlefield one day.
Yes. I'm actually excited about. In August, they're coming out with a Batman the Animated Series themed Heroclix set, and I pre-ordered a 10-pack, a brick. So I'm looking forward to that.
You got your own lingo too. You call it a brick.
Heroclix lingo. That's what they call it. Yeah.
You should make a whole video just on the different lingo.
I could probably do that. I have wanted to make a video of no, I won't talk about it right now.
Spoilers.
Yeah. I don't want to give somebody else ideas. Although I don't know who else is watching this. Probably not other clicks maker video guys. Matthew, thanks. Thanks for letting me interview you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate getting to be interviewed. I mean, and I hope to come back in the future sometime. Maybe come back when I actually have a comic book and talk about it a little more.
Yeah, definitely. And probably you could come back and I don't know, maybe we could talk more about what's going on in comic books or like the Spider-Verse thing. Or I don't know, maybe we could talk about movies or something.
How about Thor?
Yeah. This guy. It's raining pretty hard here. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.